October 22nd, 2024. Well, we're 2 weeks away from the election as of this release, and I want to discuss an item that I've not heard discussed in the campaign up to now at all, and I think it's really a sleeper issue that's kind of become a non-issue, but it should be one because it has to do with what will happen to your taxes starting in the tax year 2026. If Kamala Harris were to unfortunately win the election, if that were to occur. While right now it's looking less and less likely, it's still not totally impossible at this point. But I've been a little critical in the past of certain key issues that have been pretty much not emphasized as much. And while we continually hear the bombast that Trump somehow is going to be this great threat to democracy, the threat to democracy, of course, that the Democrats pose, or at least what I say our constitutional system anyhow, is not being discussed that much. But I've done that in other videos. But this is something I haven't really got into before. And that's the income tax situation. As you know, that in the Trump tax cuts, or the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, tax rates were lowered for almost everybody in terms of marginal rate. And of course, a lot of people were given a standard deduction that meant that that they didn't have to itemize and so forth. And there were very few people that really come off bad, and that would be mostly people that had a lot of state and local deductions in high tax states, and probably even more toward the upper income, might have had a small hit in the thing because of the way it was structured. But for everybody else, it was a tax cut, and that's why I've always been railing against this. However, since it's scheduled the way it was passed, the corporate and business parts of the taxes were essentially made as part of the permanent law, but because of the way the system works, it was done on a reconciliation budget, and the way that's done, it's a sort of a specialized type of appropriation that avoids a direct cloture vote or the filibuster, because it's done with a so-called reconciliation package. And the way it was structured, anyway, and the way they wanted to sell it, or however you want to put it, the actual personal cuts were not permanent cuts. They were they would go through the tax year 2025, and in 2026 they'd revert to the rates we had prior to that. Okay, and so essentially, while on the other hand, the Democrats have been touting that no family couple making under 400,000 would have a tax increase. I think there's a loophole in here that's pretty big, and nobody's discussing it. And interesting enough, nobody's really holding the Democrats to account to what do they really plan on doing. So I'll try to explain this here. By the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like. Helps the algorithm. Always looking for new subscriptions if you're on YouTube, and you can of course click the bell for notifications. If you're on Rumble instead of YouTube, you can follow me there. So what I'm getting to is this. I think in their definition, a tax increase would have to be something that would be passed through Congress and then signed by the president. But if it's going to happen anyhow, then they would argue, well, that's just part of the current tax rate. And therefore, you wouldn't... We didn't raise your taxes. That was Trump that set that up, right? That's what they're going to say. Now, we also know that if Trump was elected, and if he has a Congress that will go along with him, I'm pretty sure he's going to make those personal tax rates permanent and part of the regular tax law, not to expire at any time. And that's the Republicans at various times have raised this issue since then, but have never been able to have the votes to do it. Whereas, so what I think would happen with Harris, and I think the Democrats, is that they're going to say, well, that's just part of the law, and we didn't increase your taxes at all. And so you're actually going to get a tax increase. Almost everybody from the lowest tax rates on up to the top are going to get a tax increase, I think, when they don't extend the Trump tax cuts, because they've also said that they're against the Trump tax cuts. And then they try to say, well, they're only for the rich. But of course, that's a lie. And I pointed that out in my video, The Truth About Trump Tax Cuts. But the question is, are they going to make the tax cuts permanent below 400,000 for a couple, and that's 200,000 for an individual, by the way. So if you're in, at any rate. But the point I'm making is that I think that may be the big loophole that they're moving through that'll increase the taxes on almost everybody. So that's just something to look out for, and another reason to vote for Trump and to vote Republicans down ticket, particularly for any federal office, Senate and House. Really, vote Republican if you want to keep away from these tax cuts. Now, Trump has made a lot of promises beyond that, and we'll see how those actually pan out. But I think the big thing would be just to keep the tax rates you have now. I think that would be very good as opposed to having them go up. For instance, people, for instance, in the 24% bracket, for instance, would go up to 28 and so forth. Also, certain brackets would pop into existence that didn't exist and so forth. It's a complicated thing. I'm not going through all of it, but I'm just saying that people are clearly in the middle income range, I think, for couples particularly, are probably going to run into maybe some tax increases with the Democrats, which they'll say, they will then blame on Trump or the Republicans, when in fact they're the ones that are going to want to make sure these expire. Then, of course, they want to actually pass tax increases on businesses, corporations, and so forth, while claiming they're for small business. Of course, as people are into that area, there's a certain called a S corp, and a lot of the small businesses are fall into that category and will probably be hit by those tax increases I mentioned. So anyway, I just thought I kind of warn everybody, and I think it's interesting to me, and I think a bit of malpractice of Republicans that they're not raising this issue. I've not heard the Democrats or Harris ever been asked this question. And I think it's a sleeper that will sleep right up and bite somebody. Oh, well. So anyway, that's that. Now, I'll take a brief look at the big picture on the election, too. What's happened is right now, I think we're going down to, Harris' lead has dropped now to only, 0.9% nationally, and Trump is ahead by 1.1% in the 7 competitive states. And he's really technically based on the Real Clear Politics average, and he's ahead in all 7 of the competitive states. Although I'm a little suspicious that the Nevada one may be a little skewed by a poll which was done by the Wall Street Journal, which has him ahead by 6% on a registered voters only poll of a small number of voters. I'm skeptical of that. If you take that out, then it would be a dead even in Nevada. And another thing I would say about Nevada is that Nevada doesn't give him a lot in and of itself. If he just were to win, say, for example, the 3 southern states of North Carolina, Arizona, and Georgia, if he were to win those, getting Nevada alone wouldn't give him a victory, unless some special situations occurred, which would involve going into the House of Representatives and winning the Omaha district in Nevada, etc. So I would suggest that maybe it'd be good to win it as a little bit of icing on the cake, but we really need to win at least one of the northern states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. So anyway, that's kind of a run through on how I see the election. I think things are trending in the right direction, but it's a very narrow lead, and a lot can happen in 2 weeks in politics. So we'll just have to see, how that were to pan out. Okay, and I'll pretty much make another comment. The other thing that's looming in the background that we clearly know is happening is this Israeli strike on Iran and how that plays out. And when that occurs, does that occur before or after the election? I think that's an interesting question right there. Now, we've just had this release of this very classified document from the Geospatial Intelligence Agency. And if you look at that thing, that's top secret with a lot of special handling characteristics on it. Whoever released it, if they get caught by the FBI, I think they're going to be in real trouble. But anyhow, it was published in all over the place now, And it does reveal, I had mentioned earlier that I wasn't sure exactly how Israel was going to go against certain targets, but I figured they might have a few surprises for us. Well, if you look at that stuff, there are some surprises. I never heard of some of the missiles that they're talking about using, but I guess a few tricks up their sleeve there. So that's apparently something that may happen. And of course, we don't know what kind of reprisal the Iranians might have, another missile barrage or what. The other aspect, of course, is if they were to damage the oil ports, that would shoot up the oil prices on the international markets rather quickly. And of course, the administration wouldn't want to see that before the election, of course. And of course, the Chinese don't want to see it at all because that's where they get a lot of their oil from. So, there you have that. The other thing, as I've mentioned earlier, there are rumors that the Iranians may have already done a nuclear test because of the 4.5 magnitude earthquake that didn't have any aftershocks, which is kind of a characteristic of an underground test. Although it's interesting, the United States government has said nothing about this. It's just a rumor mill that's floated around in certain, I think, more or less Middle Eastern and sources that have been reported, of course, here by derivative. But the thing I'm a little worried about is that the Iranians said that their response might be a quote unconventional response, and in the parlance of the Israelis, unconventional in this sense means nuclear. And so that could be a catastrophe, particularly if that happens right before the election or even after. I mean, it'd be a horrible thing. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully that's a bluff, or hopefully it's misinformation. But they're playing a dangerous game here. Let's just put it this way. And a lot of lives and a lot of things are at stake. So we'll see how that goes. Are these rocks missiles, for instance, are they capable of hitting these underground nuclear facilities? The brochure I saw online from Raphael seems to indicate it does have some ground penetration capability. It's apparently kind of an air-launched ballistic missile. So there's some other ones which, one called Golden Horizon, which I have no idea what that is. It sounds like an American code name actually, but I don't know anything about it. I never heard of it before, and Google doesn't reveal anything about it either. So we don't know what that is. And so, at any rate, but this is another thing that could be pending and could affect the election a little bit because, Trump has taken a position that they should go after the nuclear sites, and Biden/Harris has taken the position they shouldn't. And of course, if it was successful and nothing bad comes of it, that would be advantage Trump, I guess. But if something catastrophic were to come from it, it might be disadvantage. So this is another little late October surprise. Of course, people are already voting in many parts of the country now. So early voting is open in a lot of places that have it, including Florida, Texas, and so forth. And other places have had it for some time already, like Georgia and so forth. So, at any rate, get out and vote Trump, vote Republican, and try to save the country. I'll be wrapping this up for now. I'll be posting this both on YouTube and Rumble as always. And of course, the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.